This week on the Push Pull Legs podcast, our guest is Will Downing, strength and conditioning coach, sports rehabber and trainer. We chat about training clients for performance all the way through to rehab and correctives. Three, two, one. I'm here with GFT. All right, hello guys. You'll notice that I have just done the intro because Daniel Meek is off hashtag celebrity training. He is, I think, Doha, Switzerland, Berlin, London. Apparently he's going to pop in and see me. And also this guy, because we delved into our little bag of tricks again and brought out, I guess we can call him an expert of whatever fields he's done. Is Mr. Will Downing. So say hello, Will.
Hey Tom, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. Awesome. Thanks for coming on. Notice, I gave you notice. I wanted you on for a while anyway, and we were just chatting about it. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about who this man is, because he's actually a chap that I've learnt a fair bit off, and that is saying something. Everybody knows of the podcast that I'm clearly the more intelligent one out of me and Dan. But also, thanks for everybody who's just like a day after putting the last podcast out with Mr. Tom Mans. I said in the break that if you went and reviewed the podcast, I'll make Dan sing to you in the next podcast. Obviously, he's not on this one, but we've just had a load of reviews. So thanks, guys. That was really good. I thought that would be a little bit of a plug there. But all right, so we're going to get into Will Downing. Who are you? What do you do? What kind of fitness? You are involved in health and fitness. I will guarantee that. Yeah.
I don't know. It's quite difficult to actually say where I'm. I don't know if you can pigeonhole me as such. There's not really one philosophy that I follow. But I come from an S&C background. Did strength and conditioning with rugby, Paralympics, a little bit in rowing, a bit of football, and a little bit of fencing. So strength and conditioning background, but now I'm finding myself more interested in kind of movement based, a little bit more rehab. So it's kind of evolved from S&C, seeing people move really badly, not really sure why they kind of move badly, even if they're lifting some heavy weight, whatever it was, to then going into trying to figure out how we can make that movement a little bit better, be a little bit more efficient, and being more efficient mean you can shift more load. But yes, it does, but we're still kind of finding that out along the way.
Yeah, pretty much. So the be-all and end-all, if I want to sum up Mr. Downing, is I've worked with him for a bit, and we would have crossed paths at the same uni, but I was doing nerdy stuff, he was lifting weights, and it's kind of gone the opposite direction, to be honest. I probably should have been doing your stuff as much as possible, but yeah, I kind of knew you through a couple of guys like James Gilbertson, etc., who I knew before, and yeah, Will went and did the S&C at the university I was at. So you can tell where this podcast can be very heavily about kind of movement and rehab and S&C, not so much nutrition. We will dive into that at the end because I'm going to give my opinion on something, and Dan will hate me for it. But basically, you went and did your master's degree you did your bachelor's first, obviously, in whatever, it was sports and something.
Yeah, exactly, sport and exercise, and that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, 2008 I think I finished. And then took a break, did a few random bits and bobs, felt that wasn't quite right, so wanted to get back in sport, wasn't really too sure what context. I had a mate that did S&C, and it just, as soon as he was telling me about everything that he was doing, it was just like, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I thought about doing a few courses here and there, wasn't really too sure, and I just thought I'd sell myself a bit short if I didn't go and do kind of a master's level at it. So that's when I went back and started studying, learning about kind of proper periodization, acceleration, a little bit of sprint mechanics, strength, power, fitness testing, battery testing, needs analysis of the sports, all that good stuff, and then obviously doing a research project at the end. And along the way, kind of getting some experience, kind of dipping my toe in. I think the first place that I managed to get some work was when I was at a rugby club. So I worked at Wasps for about 6 months, just as like an intern, which was kind of, you got thrown in the deep end a little bit, and it was a massive exposure to rugby at supposedly, I know it was at the academy level, but it was a professional club, to kind of get some exposure in there and kind of see what it was like, and your perceptions of it when you're not working in sport. You have a much greater, I don't know, you think it's a little bit sexier, you think it's going to be wicked, you're going to have all the best facilities, everyone's going to be compliant, the coaches are going to be like in sync with what you're thinking of, but the reality is so different, which is actually, it's probably been the case throughout all of my, everywhere I've worked has always been, I thought it was going to be something, and it never turns out like that. Like, I had a perception of going into, when I went into British fencing, thinking that it's quite not an amateur sport. It's just not a very mainstream sport. But actually, the stuff that the sports science team were doing there was wicked, really, really good. The performance analysis was ridiculous. This guy that had been working there for a few years, and it was almost better than some of the coaches in terms of his analysis of movement and things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess so where have I gone off track already?
I mean, like with the British fencing stuff, that was obviously we were incorporated in the same university, so I got offered the opportunity as well. We went down and like kind of mixed around with some of the biomechanical analysis and the performance guy, and yeah, it was kind of through the roof from what I was in a professional setting at Brentford, and it was just nothing compared to considering how much money was involved in football and how much money is involved in British fencing. I personally know, obviously you know as well, that James Davis, who's massive, but yeah, it's just like, how is this, the athlete he's so much more of an athlete, and no offense, he does fencing than most of the football players that are there.
Yeah.
Just
probably more of an understanding of why he's doing it as well, I think, and it relates to his performance, more so than some of the other sports that you work in.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're going through into S&C, what would you say your biggest takeaways were when you did your S&C master's degree? What kind of stuff have you got rid of? What kind of stuff have you clung on to in terms of, I don't know, anything at all? So obviously you mentioned like periodization, you mentioned or like some sort of corrective, you sort of fitness tests was something we talked about earlier, but
I think from taking everything away, I think the one thing that the course didn't give me enough of was that actual coaching experience, that hands-on time, and I guess that obviously, the degree kind of sets you up so you can then go and get the experience. So probably one thing that it might be missing is actually getting your hands on some good athletes and being able to, whether it was the Olympic lifting stuff that we had been kind of taught, or whether it was sprint mechanics or agility, or just being in and around with athletes. I think that was one thing it kind of missed. But the stuff that was probably most helpful coming away from it was they made it quite clear that like when you do you need to do a needs analysis of the sport that you're looking at. So you have to understand areas of where the injury might happen. Let's say hamstring strains or whatever. In the case of rugby, it's kind of everywhere. But and then you need to understand the demands of the sport in terms of the whether it's aerobic, whether it's more how many changes of direction people are doing, how distances they're covering, kind of standard strength markers that they should be hitting, all that type of good stuff, and then actually being able to test that and have some numbers and figures, and making sure you're monitoring those athletes throughout the course of the season. So for whatever reason, if the coach would come to you and be like, what the hell is going on with these guys, they look knackered, they're not playing at where they should be, and then let's say you go and when we were at Charlton, I remember we got just to catapult the GPS system that got brought in, and players were overtrained ridiculously. I mean, like the numbers that they were doing were huge. The numbers in the training they were doing were huge as well, which wasn't necessarily relevant. And we would try and be like, initially we were like, oh, we need to stop our players doing too much kind of steady state and more, let's say, higher intensity intervals. So we were never going into that like acceleration or that top speed stuff. And you look at some of the data which would go in their game situations, the players that were hitting it were never hitting it in training. And he would come to us and he'd be like, oh, they look knackered, and we'd go, well, here's the training volume that they're doing, and this is a training marker that we would suggest that we do. And they would always overhit that. And then, for example, just having some baseline figures and markers, I guess, is crucial for your kind of, I guess, job security to a certain extent. So you can justify your role. So when they come to you, be like, oh, you're someone's doing rubbish, or the coach thinks that player A is down, he's not performing very well, but actually in hindsight his fitness is incredible at the moment and he's doing PBs all over the place, and maybe there's other stuff that's going on. So I guess from that perspective it was quite nice that they made it really important that looking at numbers and data is really, and monitoring the athletes is really, really important, and it definitely is. And it's trying to find that balance between doing too much on the computer and being too anal about the numbers and the figures, and having building a good culture and a good environment for, I guess, just in terms of S&C and that type of training. But the degree was so beneficial. Like, the areas that we covered were spot on. I don't think there's anything which I would not take. I guess probably one thing I would take massively is the corrective exercise, which is kind of where I've kind of taken it and run away a little bit with it.
So yeah, I think one of the biggest things, because obviously when I first knew you, it was all very S&C, and then I did my bachelor's degree in S&C, but then went on to do other stuff. So it was kind of clicking from there. And when we started to get to know more about Will, I think it is like a lot of people do psychology for self-discovery. I feel like you're doing rehab for that exact purpose. Off the back of so a bit of an insight is also Dan obviously knows that Will's coming on and has told me to go, you never lift and you're always fucking injured. So my probably first year of working with Will was probably you're injured quite a lot, and I would have thought that was driving you to be like, what the fuck am I getting injured the whole time for lifting weights? Like, you know what you're doing. You're a pretty credible source of bachelor's degree and master's degree in S&C. You're like, I would probably listen to what you're doing, but then stuff that outside your source. So just as you as an athlete, obviously started fucking up. So is that more of the case of why you started to switch to rehab based? Obviously, right now. You're going on doing your MS. Is it your MSc in rehab? Sports rehab. Yeah. So, what would you say is the reason for switching? Would it be personal? Would it be a mixture of personal, professional, just professional, or anything? Or none of the above?
I think it's a combination. Tricky thing. I think it's a combination of. The area of S&C now, if you look at job opportunities or opportunities that are there, they are looking for people which have got a rehab background now, or at least have some type of exposure. So one element would be that. Two, I would watch people in the gym and they just moved, like I said earlier, they kind of moved badly. I wasn't quite sure what it was, and they weren't, and a few people were niggling injuries here and there, and I didn't really know how to deal with it, really, apart from giving them a foam roller. And then, what was the other one? Yeah, the other one's just, I've been injured, so multiple occasions. And I'm actually finding a lot of guys that are on the course anyway, some of them had pretty horrendous injuries as well. And I think it's probably, you just kind of, it sparks an interest within rehabilitation, maybe what had gone wrong with your own situation. And I think also it helps with some of the people you will be ending up working with, and some of the people you are working with, you can actually understand a little bit what they're going through. And not, when they say a hamstring strain, it's going to be like, let's say, 6 weeks till you get back to where you are. Not always the case. Every single individual is totally different. I had an arthroscopy on my knee. When was it? It's probably about 18 months ago now, maybe. I feel like I'm pretty confident with it now, but for people are like, oh yeah, easy, no problem, arthroscopy, in, out, done, and it'll be done within 6 months, you'll be up and running around. It wasn't quite the case. So I guess I've gone through that experience, which will definitely help with athletes I work with in the future, just to be like, kind of manage expectations.
I mean, that's almost a weird way of saying it, because obviously we spend a lot of time on the podcast talking about powerlifting and bodybuilding, because that's essentially how me and Dan train and what we're doing. But in essence, and we always say, kind of practice what you preach. That's why it's important to be the athlete that you're probably coaching. And it's exactly in a roundabout way. You've been injured, and you're going to be treating people that are probably going to be injured. So you're like, I've been there, man. I've been there.
Hopefully preventing most of it as best as I can. It's it's a really I'd say actually interesting. Going on the first point is as an S&C coach now, there's a massive amount which is on preventative work that needs to get done. And how you're going to do that, what's the best way to do that, which is, I guess, there's no necessarily right or wrong way about doing it, but probably if you don't understand mechanisms of injuries, or even things that maybe you should be doing as an S&C coach, then you're not really covering all bases, you're not really doing the full strength and conditioning program, if you like, you're not kind of really looking after. And you look at a lot of job posts now, there'll be like S&C background, master's degree, and ideally exposure to rehabilitation, or have some type of diploma or some type of exposure within rehab, because you're now going to be there's that gap between the physio and then the return to training, or the physio and the S&C coach. And there's this huge kind of underlying grey area. And you can get some really good S&C coaches that really understand the rehab side of things. You get some really good physiotherapies that really understand the S&C side of things. I think that's, unfortunately, for an S&C coach, they're going to have to, when working with a team setting, they're going to have to expand their knowledge a little bit about the injuries, because they're just going to be, or the rehab. I don't know whether or not there's going to be a role specifically for rehab. I see physios being kind of like a strength physio, I guess, and S&C coaches being more S&C, but with the rehab side of things as well. That's why another massive, for me, that's what I wanted to look at as well. Because I'd be there as an S&C coach, and if you've worked in clubs, the physio will kind of get them to a certain level, and then they're kind of ready back for you, and then you find out actually they're still not as strong as you think they are, or their movement's still quite bad, or the soft tissue hasn't healed properly, or whatever it is. So it's kind of just trying to fill that gap, I guess. Jack of all trades, right?
Well, so obviously you talked a lot about like sport performance setting. One thing that obviously you do now, and you've been doing for the last couple of years, is general population. How are you, like, probably the vast majority of our listeners are either physios, personal trainers, maybe a few S&C coaches, sports wise, but I'm going to guess that most people, including myself, work with the general pop at 95% of the time. It's very rare that you get this Olympic level athlete that walks through your door and is like, I want to train with you guys, and you're just like, yes! Finally, I can periodize programming. You're going to be here. You're not going to just cancel last minute because you went on a bender last night. And So what has changed, like, in the last kind of couple of years, that for you, personal training wise, that has made it more apparent that you've needed to know the rehab? So is there any like case studies or analysis that you've been like any clients or anything? Use some examples. man. Yeah.
Yeah. I trying to think. Well, the reason why I'm training more general pop now was because I was working part time at a semi-pro club where I was there 2 evenings a week and then on the weekends, which was great, but financially it wasn't great. So that obviously, I think a lot of people will go into personal training just to supplement their work they're doing.
Yeah.
For whatever reason happened, that kind of came to an end, which meant that I just started taking on more PT work. And majority, I'd say, 95% of the clients that we see are kind of your office athlete type of guy that will be working in some cases silly hours. Like, I think I work silly hours, but they're working like crazy hours on top of a lot of pressure. And for them to come in and they've all got movement dysfunctions, they've all got imbalances, they've all got previous injuries, and they all want to be training like an athlete. They all want to be training at 100%, like all the time, and it needs to be the big, sexy lifts that they're doing. And I guess it's probably just going through those phases of working with people, and then, as good as my coaching was, I'm still not getting them out of this huge kyphotic position, or they just can't. Their shoulders are so rounded, and just a simple coaching cue doesn't work anymore. So then I guess it came into, that was why I went a little bit more interested into the rehab side of things and training general population as opposed to athletes. I'd say it's just more of the difficulties you come with general pop is more of the motor patterning, I guess. Like, aside of that, most of them are really weak in certain positions, but the motor patterning, you could straight away see it. If you get someone that's gone, I used to play at like an academy level rugby or football or hockey or whatever it was, they've got an awareness of their body and they can move, and if you ask them to squat, they generally can kind of give you some type of squat. If you ask them to do a single leg squat, they can kind of give you something like that. Or if you ask them to just jump, they can kind of jump and land. It may not be optimal, but then you ask someone that's not done it and has done no activity for the last 6 years to come in, then let's say you wanted to do, I don't know, some type of metabolic conditioning of some sort, and you ask them to do that, and you're just kind of asking for trouble unless you've taken the time to coach and go through those processes of working out where their imbalances are, or their motor pattern issues are, or addressing the weaknesses here and there. I guess that's probably more of a challenge I have with the general public, that they have a perception that they want to be an athlete or they should be training like an athlete, but they've missed all of the stages that you need to go through before they've got to that point. Like, at least if you've got someone that's done a little bit of sport before, they've got some type of patterning and some type of strength. Whereas if you get the death-bound athlete, they've got, being brutally honest, most of them don't really have anything, and then they come and then they want to be hitting 100% straight away, and it doesn't quite work like that. So I guess, I don't know really, it's just trying to manage their expectations with that, and I guess the rehab side.
Managing expectations is massive, I feel, with the general pop guys that I tend to see as well, because you're kind of stuck between, I think a lot of people, as how I kind of try to do it is, I think we've covered it before, how I try and incorporate maybe the stuff they need and the stuff they want is something we've endlessly talked about, and it kind of passes how sometimes you get so embedded in. We've all been guilty, well, especially me and you probably, been guilty and actually thinking, all right, they need to do this because we've done our physical assessment, we've done our screening protocol. Actually, this is shit, this was good. All right, so we're going to do a ton of this shit that was really, really bad, and probably not touch the good thing, because we're going to spend so much time doing this other shit that might take me 45 minutes to try and do it. And then you realize, oh shit, yeah, they probably have just had a wank session. And it took me like 6 weeks, a bit of time and notifying, like, oh yeah, probably didn't need to focus on that so much. I always feel like how I've written like written like assessment and screening now, how we program off the back of that, or how we teach to is to focus at least half of the workout on stuff they're really good at. Just because if you show your client success, the more likely they are to succeed. But obviously, you're very technical in terms of where you're trying to manipulate somebody rehab-wise. Do you find that tough to not to get too bedded down and trying to give them what they want and what they need, or is it easy to kind of split around? How would you so if you've got an example client or whatever, how would you try and splinter it around if they've got say an hour session with you? What would be the plan?
I think I mean that's what made it really hard. I think first of all it comes down to your experience. I think the more hours you do as whether you call yourself a coach or a practitioner or whatever, the more hours you do, the better you're going to get at it massively. And I find that, let's say I got someone that comes in with all these dysfunctions going all over the place, like horrible squat patterning, all this type of stuff. I know that, first of all, they don't want to be told how rubbish they are, and you should never tell them. And I think I've all made the mistakes of looking at something and going, oh my God, what am I going to do here? But kind of taking a few small elements here and there, adding on, most of the time they probably need a little bit of movement. So let's say they've got zero movement through their hips. Trying to use exercises which are going to be challenging in terms of a movement and a passing type of way that's going to get them moving through, whether it's internal or external rotation, flexion, extension, movement patterns. Trying to take that kind of elephant in the room, whatever it is, and as a practitioner accept that you're not going to hit it perfect probably for the first, it could be terrible. It could be the first 4 weeks. I think I wrote something about 1,000 rep rule, saying that to get kind of just started with an exercise, to just start understanding the feeling and the movement and the patterning or something. You have to get 1,000 reps in to get it good. Some people will get it a lot quicker, depending on how complicated the movement is. But how do you deal with someone that comes in and they've got loads of dysfunctions, and without just going, right, you're going to spend an hour on a foam roller? I think I just have to just go, well, here's the elephant in the room. This is what the worst thing it's going to do. We'll try and make as many changes as we can through our exercise selection that are going to address maybe some hip flexor tightness or whatever it is that we're going to do, and just do the best you can possibly do. And also with general public, you've got to remember, you probably, if you're really lucky, you might see them 3 times a week, and that's for an hour. And out of that hour, let's say you spend the first 15 minutes doing some type of structural work or muscle imbalance work, then you've got 45 minutes out of a week. And out of a week, there's 167 hours in a week. 45 minutes out of that, and what are they doing the rest of the time? So it's kind of like probably more of an educational type of thing, I guess. Trying to be aware of where they're not as strong as where they could be, I think it's a really difficult one. I don't think there's any quick fixes, and sometimes, let's say when I got introduced to a foam roller and when I got introduced to a lacrosse ball or hockey ball, God, it was so painful. I mean, as you know, probably, it can be so incredibly uncomfortable, and telling someone that they need to go and do this is quite it's a hard sell. You need to spend 10 minutes on each leg doing it. It's like, oof.
One of the biggest things when I advocate it, obviously quite a lot, we're usually lying around on a kettlebell or a foam roller or a lacrosse ball most of the breaks that we have, it's just that when you say 5 minutes, and then you do 5 minutes of it with them, and they're like, fucking ages. What are you? It's just like they can. Most of my guys will barely do 30 seconds, and then that's too much. And then I think you'll probably know more than me about the theory about the muscle contraction letting go on a foam roller, or So what's the timing for that as well? Because some people might listen to the podcast in terms of when you're on a foam roller or you're on a lacrosse ball or something like that, obviously your muscle is contracting a little bit and you're trying to let it go. Is there a certain amount of time that you're meant to be spending on there?
I would just go do a maximum or as max effort contraction as you can. Just big squeeze, probably no more than 5 seconds at a max, and then just relax a little bit, and hopefully you get that. Was it the post isometric? Was it post isometric contraction relaxation? So basically, as soon as you've made that contraction, this is similar to PNF.
Yeah.
As soon as once that contraction's gone, you've probably got a split second before you get some relaxation.
And pretty much, you can pretty much nail on, like, just when your person's going to scream, or if you've placed it in the right, and that is just going to be, and gone, and you're like, fucking hell, yeah, that really hurts. And, yeah, we spend a hell of a lot of time with it. Either, like, obviously, yeah, TFL-wise, I spend a hell of a lot of time going through that, because mine's unbelievably tight. And then what's been my glute and my performance at the moment is just constantly on, to be honest. So that's yeah, it's just.
I think you're right though. The more that I've kind of looked into it, and there's certain like guys out there that advocate that you should be spending literally 10 minutes on each body part on each side, and the more experience I've had that, and the more exposure I've had that, yeah, you're right. As soon as you say 10 minutes, the normal literally people will go on a foam roller for like 10 seconds rolling up and down. Yeah, and they swap sides, and not really done anything. You haven't. I'm trying to think if there is any benefit. Maybe, probably not really. I don't know.
I think maybe. like I always the thing I say is like, all right, you always do that, or you always stretch out your hamstrings, and you always foam roll like that. I was like, has anything changed? I was like, well, that's not the answer. That's not the answer. Clearly, if that was the answer, then everybody would be super flexible, everybody would be super mobile, and then we're fine. I was like, so why don't we do it my way, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Probably, kind of most people just a blank response of like, whatever, Tom, shut up. Yeah, okay, or just like a smarmy look. But yeah, that's about it. Also, so what kind of stuff are you doing in the rehab course? So your master's degree is rehab and something, I'm guessing.
It's just rehab.
Oh, it's just called rehab. That's just like the simplest name. That's amazing. Cool. There's usually some long fucking fangled title for every MSc that I've ever seen. All right. Yeah. So what's involved?
What's involved? So we look at obviously anatomy. It's massive.
Really?
We look at we have a module called corrective exercise, which is basically looking at movement dysfunction and then how do you correct this dysfunction. And we have pathophysiology, so we're going through injuries to bones, ligaments, tendons, cartilage, and what other ones are we looking at? Effectively any type of injury you should get, we'll look at it.
Yeah.
And go through it and try and apply it as much as we can. The elements of it which I guess I've been fortunate that I've been away from the university environment for a little bit now and kind of going back into it is especially from coming from an S&C background and the degree being taught by I'm not going to hate on anyone, I try not to, but the degree being taught by physios that don't have too much exposure to a gym environment, to like a weightlifting S&C background, that type of environment.
Perfectly fine, because we brought a physiotherapist onto this podcast and I said exactly that thing to him. He agreed. So I was just like, yeah, I've had an argument with two physiotherapists that have been basically patients, clients of mine have been referred on to me, and I've seen their notes and I've written back and saying, I think you're wrong. Which was only because I know what setting they're in. They're in a very clinical environment, and I've always asked like our resident osteopath, who I prefer going to see or something like that. Just, is this? I think this is this. Could it be that? And they'd be like, yeah, probably. Like, you're probably right. So yeah, it's an interesting. I always feel like the physio that trains is a god. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like he can diagnose, he can do a load of all of the shit, and he knows all of my stuff. Fuck it, I'm not needed. So
I think you're right, and I guess it's the same from an S&C coach. Imagine if you had I'm trying to think of an S&C coach that would doesn't go lifting or doesn't do any exercise, but then is trying to prescribe stuff. I think it just doesn't work. I don't think they can't feel the same thing that you're asking them to feel and all that type of stuff. So I'd say from a corrective exercise element, which is absolutely brilliant in terms of looking at imbalances, patterning, and weaknesses, and how you kind of test and all that type of stuff. I think the integration then back into some exercises that the athletes or the clients or whoever it is are going to get given. I think there's a little bit of a breakdown there, and I just think that's just for the fact that I don't think they're doing any. They're not really S&C, and I don't think they're, let's say maybe early stage rehab, very good. Mid to end stage, back into return to training protocols. I think they'd be missing quite a lot there.
So off your corrective exercise, let's throw it out at you. Let's say probably the biggest thing you're ever going to correct is normally is a squat. More than likely. So if we say like excessive forward lean or something like that is going to be a big one. Yeah. I'm guessing a lot of our general personal trainers that probably listening would get that a hell of a lot. You're a corrective guy. What do you do? Wow, that's an open-ended question, and I know that. That's fine.
You do. Okay, so excessive forward lean, you would assume probably a tight hip flexors, probably a lack of dorsiflexion, and maybe a lack of, probably a weakness through mid-upper back. Those are probably, if you just looked at it, those would be the areas that I'd go and check. So then off the back of that, I'd do a little bit of further investigation. The standard ones would be like a strict knee to wall, so a good knee to wall test, which is just checking ankle dorsiflexion. Then the hip flexors would do a good, standard would be a Thomas test, and try and standardize that as much as possible, so keeping the pelvis in a nice neutral position, and then checking hip extension. And then for anything to do with back weakness, you could just, to be honest with you, you could probably, you could just try and see if they can hold a prone cobra. Is it cobra? It is a cobra or a scorpion. Yeah. Something like that. See if they can actually hold out, and then see if there's got any compensations. I guess the first thing to do would be maybe try and coach it. This person may never have done a squat before, and they don't actually know what an actual squat looks like. Yeah. And you may look at them, they might have great dorsiflexion, the hip flexors aren't tight, and the back's probably a little bit weak. And then you coach them again, and then you go through, let's say, 30 reps. And then you'd be really surprised. I think I popped something on my Instagram the other day, plug, and I couldn't believe, actually, I was so surprised with I did a before and after squat, and she squatted terribly, heels came off the floor. She was so paranoid about, she had to keep her back 100% vertical. Just went through a few tests, and I was like, this girl's mobile as anything. She's got loads of range, no problem. So what's going on? So then we just went through literally 5 minutes of just coaching. And yeah, it's not perfect, but you see from where she was to where she got to in 5 minutes, you'd be like, this is amazing. But yeah, so an excessive forward lean, I think that's probably the hard thing. You may see an excessive forward lean, and then you'll be like, I'm not really too sure what to do here. Yeah. It's then just it just comes from understanding what you should be looking for, and what, areas you can kind of rule out straight away. And that just comes from, hours of seeing people squat.
Seeing people squat is probably the best thing. Look at people squat. Go look at Lane Norton, and then come back and go look at any kind of Olympic lifter, and tell me that you'd be like, hang on a minute, no, that Lane Norton's is an excessive forward lean, but wait a minute, he's low bar and all this stuff. That's when you can start getting to it. But yeah, it's very interesting. But awesome, man. I agree with your test. It's fine. Dorsiflexion, obviously, and the Thomas test are generally in my assessments. So all good, man. Well done. Good. I agree.
Also, you've got with testing. I think that's one thing I've learned as well. Is just being as standardised as possible with your testing, because you can kind of get a false positive. So someone may be able to get hip extension, but if you're not checking where their pelvis position is, or where you're putting the opposite leg, or how high it is, all that type of stuff, then you're going to get you're going to be looking at them and they're going, oh, loads of hip extension. But then no, if you standardise it, a classic one would be a straight leg raise.
Yeah.
If you look at straight leg raise, if you want to standardise it, you'd either get them to go into a posterior pelvic tilt and then you can go that one, rather than just letting them go. At least you know every single time. Your standardised protocol is going to be posterior pelvic tilt, hand on the back, straight leg, see where we are.
Yeah.
But
that's a big one that I've been teaching over one of the gyms last week, was the straight leg raise, and how to. I was being a dick basically, and I was changing my pelvic position to change my range, and they were like, oh, what? And they were like, why is it different? I was like, tell me. I was like, what have I done? But yeah, it was just pelvic position as actually going through. All right, so more recently, I want to touch on this more than anything else, because running through pretty rapidly, mate. We're doing well. So I've been calling you Gary. So anything like so. For most of the part, me and Will agree on a hell of a lot of shit. And this stuff, I just find it funny. Mainly because I don't understand it, and I've gone off on a different pathway, and some of you guys have gone for a different pathway as well. It's totally legitimate, and obviously, it's definitely a new thing that, along with I've been looking into more with Luke Worthington. Obviously, you know the guy, like the PRI stuff, and I've been delving into it and looking at it, and then seeing what else is happening in the industry as well. So I think breathing will become, obviously breathing control and respiration and having control of the diaphragm will become a massive thing in the next 5 to 10 years. But I also think this, in terms that integrated with what you're going to talk about now, hopefully, will also becoming even bigger in the next 5 to 10 years. And we'll be seeing people warming up like this, like Olympic standard, more than I feel like that's going to be incorporated, because I can literally see the results as you walk out the gym of some people. And even though I take the piss, I see some of the stuff that some of you guys are doing, and I do it whilst I'm working out just to see what it feels like. You probably don't know that, but yeah, I do that. I do it in a corner, hidden away. But what we're talking about is it's Gary Gray and the Gray Institute and Anatomy in Motion. If anybody knows of those two institutes and those three formats, it's, to sum up, it is rehab based, but it is applicable to general part, big time. It can get people sweaty, essentially, but I would say, as in your sagittal, transverse, and frontal planes, it's multi-plane, tri-plane movements, and seeing how your whole body interacts with each other, I would say. Yeah. So, what are you delving into? What is it?
What am I doing?
What the hell are you doing, Will?
More S&C and lifting weights.
Yeah.
I think it just, again, probably just from looking at movement-based, and looking at kind of finding out a little bit more about anatomy, finding out about, I think you call it functional anatomy.
Yeah, we're not allowed to use that word on this podcast because...
sorry. But if you look at a lot of your training, not necessarily your training, a lot of training that's done in the gym, a lot of it is in sagittal plane. There's very little which does in frontal plane, and minimal amount which goes into the transverse plane. And you're like, okay, well, why is that applicable? I guess, well, if you're taking a gait or any type of movement like that, you're going through frontal plane, you're going through sagittal plane, and you're going to go through transverse plane with all these movements that are happening. It's obviously a hell of a lot more in depth than that. But solely going from, I think it was coming back a while back, I was looking at all my exercise selection, and I was going from a split squat into a goblet squat, into a front squat, into a back squat, into a Bulgarian split squat, and then I might chuck in a lateral squat here and there, or whether it be a lunge or whatever variation you want, and then it's a very, very little transverse plane movement that I don't do at all. So that was kind of one thing that kind of like, thought that I should maybe try and put, you talk about probably these funky movements which you see in the gym where hands and arms and legs and all these things are going everywhere.
Bloody flying everywhere. It's like they're trying to fly away. It's mad.
I think also as I'm moderately new to it, I'm still finding my feet with it as well, so still experimenting it. But they've got like instead of what's kind of taught in a degree is, this is why the corrective exercise on the module at my university is quite nice, because it gives you a simple one. It gives you an overhead squat in a standardized position, and then it tells and then you've got two other ones which would be a single leg squat. So they're just sagittal plane movements, but what they're doing is looking at a squat and trying to find out where a dysfunction is, exactly like you said. But we don't all, yes, you can see a few things. You might be able to see a little bit of hip flexor tightness or whatever like that, but the type of Gary movement they will take certain elements, so they'll move you in adduction and abduction. They'll turn you into rotation, internal, external rotation, and then they'll do you into flexion and an extension. But they say from like a full body movement. So let's say we're doing going into kind of a forward lunge with an overhead reach. And then this is what comes with experience and hours and understanding where that limitation within that system is. So whether it is your hip flexors that are tight through the movement. So let's say you get someone and they can reach all the way over, and you're like, to the untrained eye, you'd be like, yeah, that looks fine. But actually, when you look at it maybe a little bit closer, that they're not getting any of that movement through their hip. They're getting all of it through lumbar and trying to get some of it through their, the thoracic spine as well. And they're not actually able to get into hip extension, which would then suggest that they're probably not actually using their glutes as well as they could. And that's just through general movement. And you can then obviously back it up by checking it on a bed and having a look on a bed and doing all the tests you want to do there, just to kind of reinforce, oh yeah, that is exactly what I'm seeing. Or it could be that they don't know how to let their hip go into an extended position, and they actually can't. They can't actually move very well, and it's probably more of a patterning. A lot of the stuff I see actually, people are because that's a sagittal plane movement, just let's say a lunge overhead, no problem. As soon as you tuck them into a lateral plane movement, let's say it's a lateral lunge, not too bad, fine. But then as soon as you go through the opposite way, they're stiff as anything. They can't do it. They can't control that movement. They can't even initiate that movement sometimes. And you're like, wow, okay, so kind of looking at something, you might not necessarily be 100% sure why, but you definitely know there's something going wrong there. And then if you try and put in some type of rotational movement as well, it kind of throws them all over the place as well. So, is it important for powerlifting? Probably not.
Probably not. Unless
someone comes back from an injury, I would say working through joints in full range of motion, all that type of stuff, I would say yes, it's important. But for the sport as a needs analysis, when you're looking at it,
everything literally goes up down. That's it. That's the whole sport. To be honest, up down.
Yeah. But I'd say there's lots of different sports that are out there which are multi-direction, change of direction, and require a lot more than just a squatting squatting movement. Which, don't get me wrong, you look at rugby. You still have to be big. You still have to be strong. You still have to be incredibly powerful to play that sport. But we also have to be, while you're strong in sagittal plane, are you going to be strong when you're coming and jumping down from a landing position slightly awkwardly, which may not be in that perfect sagittal plane? Are you going to expose yourself, and how weak are you going to? You're going to be like as weak as a kitten in a slightly externally rotated hip position and landing in that. That might expose them to a little bit more injury, maybe.
The interesting thing about that, though, because obviously you're saying, so when you're saying, there's always going to be squatting, there's always going to be deadlifting in rugby players. So, and then you chuck them into, they always have position going laterally or anything there. With you training that position, would you advocate ever in progression loading it?
What
in not just a lateral lunge, but a lateral lunge with a rotation or extended reach or something like that?
That's going to come down to how much exposure they've had to that, I guess. There's no problem with doing it. I think let's say you've got a fit, healthy athlete, that can perform the movements well, adding a little bit of load into it, yeah, no problem. Whether or not you get a rugby player being able to do some of the dancing movements might be a little bit difficult. But definitely from a return to training protocol and implementing it into warm-ups as much as I can, yes, I would. When you talk about loading, are you talking about?
I guess this is the from me looking from the outside in. The only stuff that obviously I see this as heavily rehab and a different type of mobility that's going to be integrated alongside your big kind of movements. I'm still going to do a heavy push, and then I'll go into doing something this mobility or some of the like multi-plane movements. But am I ever going to get away from doing overriding over like a vertical pull, like a pull up or something like that, and then doing something? Because I don't think that they're ever going to replace each other, and that's going to be the guy that you're going to load properly and progress. Other than banding it, I can't see you loading it, obviously, like not axial, spinal, or anything like that. I guess like weighted vests would be cool if you're thinking about that, but it'd be interesting to see.
Well, in terms of how you would change a pull-up in terms of bang for buck type of thing.
Well, yeah, because but we know how you like. If it was a pull-up, we know how to progress a pull-up. How do you get better at pull-ups? We can put just a weight on you. But if like you're doing a lateral lunge with a rotation, is it a movement that's going to be progressed? Does it have to be?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. Yeah, there's no point if you let's say if you can do this at body weight, then you're going to try and add a different stimulus, try and add a load, as long as it's all safe to do so and they move well and there's no problems there at all, then yeah, 100% would die there. But how is it, you wouldn't want to get them with a barbell and like the jerk.
Just kind of turning around like I don't know, now the Aguilar and kind of just going whing. I could see definitely. I think something that I've probably seen from you is banding somebody from a certain point, or you've tried it out and testing where the banded kind of stimulus and tension could be put on a joint or whatever joint you're trying to overload. That I'd say I've seen you do that before. That'd be applicable. So that would guess I'd be a class progression if I'm not retracting.
Yeah. I think it also comes down to an understanding of how the body should work. So if you understand that not all of your rotation should be coming through your lumbar and thoracic spine, your hips should be able to rotate as well.
Well, all of my flexibility comes through my lumbar. Well, so that's fun.
An understanding that you should be able to rotate through your hip, which then would rotate into your lumbar, into your thoracic, and then into your right, and vice versa down through your lower leg as well. Understanding that it can be done safely. But if you're seeing someone that they're doing a lateral lunge with a rotation, but they're getting zero rotation through their hip because they're so stiff, and they're trying to get that all through their back, and that comes with coaching and understanding and seeing, whether their hip moves or if it doesn't or if it's stuck. Then you're probably going to answer issues with the back because you're overloading that, and the hips aren't doing what they should be doing, which means that the lumbar is going to have to do more, or the thoracic is going to have to do what the hip should be doing as well. So it's almost double loading it. So I guess understanding that, and understanding ways in terms of, this is when the funky exercises come in, is understanding the exercise selection and how you use it and what is right and what might not be quite right for it.
I think it's going to be. I feel like it's going to be a great topic in the future, and it's going to get bigger and better with more people talking about it and more people dipping in from other kind of worlds. And that's what's cool about the fitness industry. Is it's cool, and what is also shit is everybody's got an opinion on other stuff. But if we can blend them and we find like happy mediums, personally, I think that's like yourself. You've dipped into this bit, dipped into that bit. I'm going to take lots of stuff from different things and incorporate it. And now my style is Will Downing style. Essentially, I can see that. It's like, actually, I'm still going to do my lifts. I'm still going to do my rehab. I'm still going to do all this stuff. And I can just make you a hell of a lot better athlete because there's all these. I've taken the best bits from everything. And it gets dangerous, hopefully, Arumi, when we become purists. It's my way it's this way and it's nothing else. I can't do it's. I guess the nutrition as well is big. Obviously, everybody knows we advocate flexible dieting, but we will never not say you can't do intermittent fasting. We'll never not say you can't do ketosis. There's stuff like that. If it works and if it's good for you, then why the hell not? But cool, man. I can see that going. There's one thing I actually want to just cover, because I know ages ago, I don't know, I think she's actually self-proclaimed herself as our biggest fan. I think it's Heather. You're probably the most applicable guy to kind of answer one of her questions. We did answer a little bit before. I've literally just written it down now, is she works with some rugby players, and as personal training clients, what would be a pretty decent, if you were mocking up, like, so you got your needs analysis, it's just a rugby player, they're kind of, let's say, 30 to 40 years old, generally going to be 6 foot plus maybe, what would be a pretty decent workout, would you say? What would be your thing that you would do? Also, as a person that played rugby, and we have an annoying trainer that plays rugby in the gym anyway.
What, just one workout, or across of, like, let's say 3 or 4 days a week, or what?
Whatever you want to give. As much information, if basically Heather, contact Will.
I would say, in an ideal situation, you would do a strength to power day. Let's say in season, you'd have a strength to power day and then some maximum aerobic speed work. That would be ideal, and then obviously some rehab, some recovery. This is if you had your perfect athlete, moves incredibly well, nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
You know that they have to be strong, you know that they have to be powerful, and you know in terms of the distance covered in a game, anywhere up to like an absolute max of like maybe 8 or 9k in a game. And then you know what percentage of speed they're doing most of that up, and then I guess that's position dependent as well. But you say most of the people are going to be doing, to be honest, I can't remember the average distance that they'll be running, but let's say they'll be running an average distance of 20 meters before they stop, another 40 meters and they stop, or something like that. I think when I was at the rugby club, probably the best thing that I managed to, I'll give you an insight, at the rugby club I had 15 minutes of them in the gym twice a week, and then 15 minutes with them on the pitch, in terms of doing whatever I wanted, along with the warm-up. So we did prehab and the warm-up. The 15 minutes, I literally had to pick the exercise that gave me the biggest bang for the buck.
What did you pick?
A deadlift, a squat, a pull-up, and then a bench press for good measure, which they liked. And there would always be some type of, it would be like a complex type of training, so you'd have the strength work followed by some type of power work. And generally, it was, 15 minutes in a gym twice a week is pretty hard to do anything with them. But I would go normally, some type of complex training.
So if you've only gotten for 2 sessions, complex and strength into kind of either speed or plyometric or power. You say, right?
Yeah. And I'd make sure pretty much the 2 lists that I did, I'd try and make sure that they were all the best quality that I could get from them. Yeah. And then we did stuff which had taken from Dan Baker, who worked in rugby league for a long time. All of his maximum aerobic speed stuff. So you do a standard yo-yo test with them. You find out what their maximum aerobic speed is, which is just the final speed that they manage to reach. And if you get them, I think you can get an app which will tell you that. So as soon as they get to the end, it will say like level 6 or level 8. And then it will tell you how quick that speed is that they're going. Let's say it's 17 kilometers an hour. And then off the back of that, I just figured out I want to do intermittent intervals with them. I can't remember exactly how many there were, but you'd be doing it over a 30, 40 and 50 meter distance based on their ability. And they had to hit certain times and certain markers. And then throughout the season, it just got a bit more interesting. So we chuck in like, you'd have to do a roly-poly, or you'd have to do a down-up, or you'd have to have a little little wrestle with a player, then you'd have to go and then do a down up and then get back and stuff. But that, on their fitness level on the pitch, was probably the biggest thing I saw. Visually, you could see it. The coaches absolutely loved it as well.
That's cool. So there you go, Heather. deadlifts, broad jumps, squats, box jumps, and then like bench press, plyometric push-ups, or something like that. Or what's that?
I said they hated the intervals, so they should be gassed at the end of it.
So gassing intervals, make them do, just fucking lie on the floor, get up. I'd believe that would be a get up, roly-polies. You can do that in your gym. Do it. Fuck it. Screw it around. That'd be great. Yeah, awesome. Awesome, man. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Push Pull Legs podcast. Keep going for those ratings, guys. Get on iTunes and give us a rating.
Ooh, that sounds like bollocks. Probably because it is. Stupid things on the internet this week.
I invited you into Stupid Things on the Internet this week. Is one of our regular feature. It has not missed a show. It has missed one show. I lie, because we had way too much to talk about. So I believe you've delved into the internet a little bit as well. Will likes moaning. I know that about some stuff.
We all
love just pointing something that may or may not be right in the industry. If it features on here, we know. And rules of the game, Will, we don't call people out. We don't name and shame. We just say why it was a bit stupid.
All right, am I going first?
Yeah, you can go, man. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't know. Well, I do know who it is, but we're not going to say who it is.
Yeah,
I think it's not necessarily something I've seen on the internet or video or anything like that, but it was just one of my clients came up to me and said, there's this trainer that has got the best training program, but it's specific for women. And I was like, okay, so it must be something to do with like hormones or like trying to train at certain times of the month to optimize something. I didn't know what it was. And then she sent me through the thing that it was all about, like the pack that she bought or wherever it came from. And it was just some woman that was just saying that you should do circuit-based training with lightweight, high repetition.
That's pretty groundbreaking, Will.
Yeah, it was pretty. I was like, wow, she really knows how to train women. Yeah. I don't think I have stupid things on the internet, but that was just probably more of a moan, more of a frustration. Sent me some things to have a look at, and I was like, oh, are you kidding? But, whatever.
Well, was the person on there like a celebrity trainer as well? I've heard that if, hence why I'm going to be hashtagging Dan Meek as a celebrity trainer. I've heard celebrity trainers, if you put that as something in your, I don't know, your little thing that describes who you are, like we'd put S&C coach or trainer or something like that, and you put celebrity trainer, usually means they're not very good. I'm gonna put it out there. Fuck it, don't give a shit. Okay. We were tagged in. We're usually tagged in multiple posts at the moment, guys. Thank you very much for the stupid things. But one of our classics that we've discussed before, and I know Will's got an opinion on. We'll keep it all training. We're not going to go nutrition. Ed Whittaker, I know one of Team Box athletes, tagged us in a post about. I'll read the post out. We'll give our opinion. If you are looking to seriously change your body composition, do more HIIT training sessions and less steady state. But there is appropriate time and place for both. Schedule HIIT after refeed days and schedule steady state after depleted stages. Any thoughts on that, Will?
Well, I'd first of all be like, okay, so where's that come from? Is that just your opinion, or is there anything else to back it up to say that one's better than another?
Mate, don't bother. Also, one thing we probably should have talked about. It's a little bit too late now, but was the fact is because we both come from kind of research settings, and what critical thinking is a big thing that we advocate, and looking through research. Is something we've done big time. When somebody doesn't give a source or on this post or nothing, it's just a statement. Yeah, but who's saying this? Is it cool? He's so there's actually a video on the post as well, and the guy's on a Wingate, bike, which is obviously applicable to most gyms.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you always say they're Monarch. I think they're Monarch, aren't they, as a brand?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen any of those in any gym. setting.
Yeah. So, but it might be his own gym for all I care. Yeah, but it's just Ed. I know Edward loves trolling people, and he's heavily featured on all the comments. It seems just saying it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. And then I commented as a podcast, and I was just like, it's almost like that really doesn't matter, Ed. And I was just like, yeah, okay. And then we made the statement about epoch, and then Ed actually showed some evidence, put a paper up there saying of how much we've gone through it before, how it's literally like half an apple over the 70 hours that you burn in epoch, more than the equivalent of calorie burn of steady state and hit. Just means there's no difference. For body composition is what he's saying. I'm going to say there's not going to be much difference, because hit training.
I think I guess the whole hit thing's come out because of time.
Yeah, that is it.
Don't want to go and sit on whatever is steady state for however long, and that.
But the interesting thing, he said to do schedule hit after refeed days. So refeed day, also you're full of glycogen, you're full of carbohydrate, you've just hit a load of energy, and only schedule steady state when you're depleted. I guess the intensity is different, obviously, but would it make? I'm gonna say probably the research hasn't done both. So steady state after refeed, will that make a difference in body composition? And hit after depleted, obviously motivation would be lacking, I would think. But apart from that, I can't imagine it would make much difference if you did hit when you're depleted or refed.
Yeah, I think you're talking about motivation. If I'm hungry and then I'm like, right, I'm going to go do some steady state, I'm not going to be happy, man.
Yeah, on that, it's more about calorie expenditure. We know most of that. And then if you have a decent workout and a periodized plan, and you're probably going push-pull legs up or lower, or daily undulated, or something like that, you probably work out all right. Focus on your weak points. And hire one of us as a coach, and you're far better, basically. So we've reached the stage. We'll kind of chop it right at the end. Thanks ever so much for coming on, Will, because I've wanted to get you on for a while, because you're a man of many talents and you know a lot of shit. So this basically, if anybody's made it to this far in the podcast, obviously congratulations, you've made it to the end. But Will, plug away anything that you're actually probably on Instagram is quite a good follow for up and coming personal trainers, because you do some exercises that, in my opinion, not many people know of. You fucking love experimenting with shit, basically, and be like, does this work? Oh yeah, it probably does. That's okay, cool. Let's do this, and then you film it, which is great. So
yeah. Sorry to all of my followers. I haven't been very active the last couple of weeks, but some of the stuff, if you're interested in what I do, most of it will be on Instagram. Some stuff with bands, some stuff with like mobility exercises, some like interesting exercises you can do to maybe address some of the imbalances that you might have. And then my website, obviously, goodformtraining.com, which has a few bits and bobs in there. Still trying to build it up a bit more, which is probably a little bit more if you're interested in certain areas, whether it's exercise technique or certain issues that I like within health and fitness. I'll write about them. Nothing quite specific yet, but that'll be it. Hopefully, I reckon in the future I'm going to do something which is a little bit more like, called it, I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, but some type of integrated training, which is going to be some type of, whether it's a soft tissue work or dressing a balance, which I do hands-on, and then into some type of training. I have no idea how that will work, if it will even work at all, but hopefully that's where I'm going to try and go down, that type of route.
Cool, man. Awesome. So if anybody can catch that, go GFT, Good Form Training on Instagram. Go give him a follow. If you can't find it, push 4 legs, follow him. So just fucking go through there. Clearly that would work. And just go search him on Facebook. I'd be his friend if you get a load of friend requests, that'd be really fucking hilarious. But yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't mind. Take it on.
All right.